Amouage really tried to make a point with this one. Alright, so the point of this video is this fragrance right here. This is Remain by Amouage, inspired by a single point. I'm going to point out all the notes, and then I'm going to give you my 2 cents in a very pointed take.
So my point, Billy, is this.
So let's get going. All right, everyone, welcome back to My 2 Cents. My name is Sean. If you are a new viewer, then welcome. And if you have been here before, then welcome back. Before we get started, I do want to say if you're a fan of fast-paced fragrance reviews and you're not already subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. The algorithm, you know they really like it when you do that, and quite frankly, so do I. Also, if you're not following me over on Instagram or TikTok, this is the handle. It's My 2 Cents Official. Please go over there, hit subscribe, hit follow, whatever the button tells you to do. I would really appreciate it. All right, that said, let's get started. Today we're going to delve right into one of the brand new fragrances from Amouage in their new Essences line. They're calling it Act II, The Geometry of Time. This particular fragrance is called Remain. Sequence is inspired by a circle, line 618 is inspired by a line and the golden ratio, and this fragrance Remain is inspired by a single point in time. The perfumer behind this fragrance was Pierre Negrin. If you're familiar with his work at all, most notably, he did the Harrods exclusive, which is called Reception. Amouage positions Remain as inspired by the point, the origin, the spark, the moment that exists before movement, before expansion, and before consequence. They don't know anything about consequence. They didn't have to pay $475 for this. Anyway, this fragrance differs slightly from the other two, where line 618 is about progression and constantly moving forward, and sequence is about circling back and returning to beginnings. This fragrance is about singularity and presence. All right, so for your geometry lesson for today, a point is unique in that it has no length, it has no width, and it has no direction. It doesn't move, it simply exists. And that's exactly what Amouage is trying to explore here. A moment suspended in time, holding all future possibilities without having exactly chosen one yet. And the name Remain actually comes from this exact idea. It's the moment that stays, the moment before any action is taken, before the story starts to unfold. And olfactively, this fragrance is designed to smell exactly like that. Contained, inward, and focused. So a little bit behind the Essences project. The fragrances included are very special because they have 30% oil concentration inside. That means they're going to be very strong and they're going to have some real lasting power on your skin. There's also a 6-month aging process here and a double infusion which includes both sandalwood chips and oak wood barrels. And that really matters for Remain because this fragrance isn't meant to explode and it's not meant to change dramatically. This is meant to be dense, it's meant to be anchored, and it's meant to be self-contained, like the point that's holding everything in before it gives it all up. All right, so enough with the geometry lesson. It's time to explore what this actually smells like out of the bottle. In the previous review that I did, the unboxing of all 3 fragrances, I only smelled this on the paper, on the blotter. But right now I'm going to put it on my skin, but before we do that, I'm going to go through the notes as they're listed on the back of the box. And since I have all of the notes listed for you right on the back of the box, I'm going to go ahead and read the top, the middle, and the base notes for you right from Amouage's mouth themselves. In the top, you've got Hojari frankincense, you've got mandarin, you've got juniper, you've got pimento berry, bergamot, and in the heart, you've got Madonna lily, ylang-ylang, juniper, jasmine, and in the base, you've got ambergris, guaiac wood, patchouli, vanilla, and tonka bean. All right, so let's go ahead and spray Remain on my skin and see what it smells like right out of the bottle. All right, so you immediately get that frankincense note. It's not a smoky or very heavy frankincense. This smells a little bit citrusy. It's glowing, it's luminous. I think it's got the mandarin as well coming out there. That's probably what's giving me that citrus vibe. There's also bergamot here mixing in with that mandarin, and then you've got this pimento berry that's giving it a sharp, so almost peppery edge. There's really nothing overwhelming here. Everything seems to be working together. As it continues to dry down, I can sense a couple of floral notes in here. You've got that Madonna lily. I'm not sure what makes it Madonna lily. You've got jasmine, you've got ylang-ylang, but nothing is over the top floral here. Nothing here is very indolic. It's not very loud. There's a softness here. There's a sweetness here as well. There's somewhat of a dry, aromatic freshness about this. It's slightly green, slightly woody. I imagine that that's the juniper. The fragrance feels very balanced, it feels very suspended, it feels like every one of the notes are working together in concert at the same time with one another. As this fragrance starts to dry down, it becomes a little bit cozy and it really is getting interesting for me. I know you've got ambergris in here, you've got patchouli, there's sort of a mineral warmth to it. There's sweetness, but it's not overly sweet. There's a little bit of a woodiness. There's patchouli, I guess, probably giving it a little bit of earthiness without really smelling directly like dirt. But I do have to say, there is sort of an earthy scent to this fragrance. One of the things that I really smell myself out of the bottle is a root vegetable component. It almost smells to me like carrot or carrot seed. Neither one of those notes is listed on the box from Amouage. They're also not listed in the notes on Fragrantica. That said, if you do go to Amouage's website, it does mention that there's a carrot note in it because it's sort of unmistakable for me. There's sort of a sweet, carroty note to this, which makes this feel very warm, very inviting, and very cozy. That sweetness seems to be coming from the vanilla and the tonka bean, but neither one of them here seem to feel like they're deliberately here to make this smell dessert-like in any capacity. They feel like they're more here for structure and for cohesion, and I really think they're enhancing that carrot note beautifully. I've had it on my skin now for about 15 minutes, and nothing in this fragrance changes dramatically. It sort of seems to be settling in with itself. Each one of the notes is still present. You still get a little bit of the floral notes. You get the frankincense in the top. You got a little bit of the mandarin and the bergamot, so you got a little bit of citrus. But what you're really getting here is something earthy, something deep, something resinous. It really smells to me like the star component in this is that carrot note. I don't know why it's not listed on the box. If you have smelled this fragrance and you got like a root vegetable component to it, let me know. But there's a sweetness to it that really enhances it and doesn't make it seem overly heavy. This fragrance really seems to settle. It doesn't seem like any one of the notes is disappearing. It doesn't seem like they're fighting with one another. They're just all really present together at the exact same time, and that's probably the point. So what I think that people are really going to love about Remain is the fact that every note here feels very intentional. Nothing feels like it's haphazard. Everything seems to have a place. And people that really like thoughtful perfumery are really going to love that. Also, if you're a fan of incense, but you don't like that smoky, church-heavy, typical incense that we get, you're really going to like this. This is a little bit refined. It's just providing a little bit backbone. And it's also a really different interpretation of that frankincense note. Despite having several florals in the middle notes, I don't think that this is a floral fragrance. I gotta say, if you're not a fan of floral fragrances, or you think that this one may lean a little bit feminine, definitely get your mind off of that because this is a unisex fragrance. None of the flowers are taking over. They're adding a creaminess, they're adding a warmth, they're not sharp or heavy at all. If you're somebody who's looking for an Amouage fragrance that's a little bit more intimate, it's going to keep a little bit closer to your skin, this is definitely a good pick. This is a very, very interesting fragrance. This is a fragrance that's going to be a conversation piece because of the notes and the way they're all blended together. But it's not going to be an overly loud fragrance that everybody's going to be asking, what is that? Not everybody's going to be offended by it because it's too loud. People are not going to be overwhelmed by your scent. But those that are in your bubble and they can smell you are going to be intrigued by what they're smelling, and it's probably going to lead to a conversation because it is such a unique fragrance. And like I said, for me, my take on it is that it feels like a very warming and very cozy fragrance. There's something almost meditative about it. There's something almost calming about it. The sweetness here, and you know I don't love an overly sweet fragrance, but the sweetness here seems to be deliberate to counteract the earthiness of whatever that root vegetable is, and I'm going to go ahead and say carrot. On the other hand, if you're one of those folks that likes a fragrance that's going to project, it's going to announce your presence, you're looking for a beast mode fragrance, this is going to be a little too subtle for you. This may come off as a little too soft, and it may come off as a little bit too quiet. Remain is not trying to announce your presence in the room, and it's not trying to project. If you're a fan of incense, the incense interpretation here may be a little bit too subtle for you, and you're not going to like this because it's not really an incense-forward fragrance. That said, if you like incense and you generally don't like it because it's usually too smoky and too loud, this may be a good fragrance for you to try. Additionally, if you're one of those people that's looking for a very, very sweet fragrance or almost a gourmand fragrance and you've looked at the notes and you see vanilla and tonka bean in this, you're probably going to be disappointed. Those aren't the stars of this fragrance. They're really here in a very subtle capacity and more to add structure to the fragrance rather than to dominate. Of all the essences in the new collection, I would say that Remain is probably the most versatile. You could wear this one at night. You could wear this one during the daytime. This is good for lunch. It's good for brunch. It's good for a date night fragrance. This is an intimate scent. This is not going to be something that's going to announce you to absolutely everybody. This is going to be a scent that's going to work in a number of different situations very successfully. And I do have to say, as soft as this is to the nose and as soft as it appears to come off the skin, this is going to have some real longevity. This fragrance lasts on the skin. Right now, it's about 40 to 45 minutes in on my hand, and I would say it's as strong as it was when it came out of the bottle, just like the other two essences. That's primarily due to the concentration of the perfume oil that's in this. Like I said, it was 30%, and also the quality of materials that have been used. All right, it's time for me to give you my 2 cents on Remain by Amouage. All right. So whereas line 618 is the most intellectual of the 3 fragrances and Sequence is probably the most emotional, Remain is probably going to be the most introspective of the 3 fragrances. It really does its job of showing us its inspiration of the point. It's focused, it's contained, it's luminous, and it's full of potential. If you're a person who likes a refined incense, an elegant, quiet fragrance, and a fragrance that feels thoughtful and grounded, this one's really going to resonate with you. But if you're looking for a fragrance with volume and drama and constant change, this one's going to feel a little bit too still. Remain is a fragrance that's about real presence. It feels like a moment that has been deliberately paused in time. Everything's been concentrated into one place, one moment, and one point in time. What I really appreciate about Remain is how controlled it is. Nothing spikes here, nothing rushes, and nothing feels out of balance. The frankincense here give it that typical Amouage DNA without feeling too smoky. The citrus here keeps it alive, but without feeling a little bit too energetic. And then the florals here keep it warm and keep it smooth without feeling too heady or dramatic at the same time. And then in the base, the artistry here is really how you've kept those really strong notes quite controlled as well. You've got ambergris, guaiac wood, patchouli, vanilla, tonka. None of them pull the fragrance in a different direction. They all simply just anchor it. And for me, Remain feels like the most philosophical out of the entire Essences trio. Nothing here feels like it's chasing drama. Nothing here feels like it's chasing novelty. Remain commits to an idea and it remains right there. For me, that's why this works so perfectly. None of the notes are working to fight against each other. Everything seems to have been placed here with deliberate intent and working in concert with one another. And for me, that's what makes this fragrance work so well. All right, that was my 2 cents on Remain by Amouage. Do you know this fragrance? Have you smelled this one yet? If you've smelled it, leave me a comment. Let me know what you think about it. If you've smelled all 3 of them, let me know how you think Remain stacks up against the other 2. If you've only smelled Remain, let me know how you think it stacks up against the previous 3. For me, I think this is an extremely unique fragrance because of that carrot note, which seems to be missing from the back of the box. I'm not sure why, but I think it definitely has a root vegetable sort of earthiness to it, and the sweetness to it makes it very, very wearable and very pleasing. If you have any questions about this fragrance or about the other essences, please leave me a comment. I try to respond to all of them, the good, the bad, the nasty, every one of them. If this is your favorite of the fragrances, please let me know. If you liked this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, also give me a thumbs up. But that was Remain by Amouage. I really, really like it. I think there's no secret behind that. Let me know what you think of the fragrance if you haven't smelled it. Once again, this was my 2 cents. My name is Sean. I want to say thank you to everybody for watching, and I hope to see you again next episode. Goodbye, everyone.